There are no restricted signs in heaven. There's no selected clientele. There are no restricted signs in heaven. Brother, brother, that goes double. Hallelujah. Oh, knock, 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 knock.
Chicago was segregated worse than it was in the South. I found no cab drivers black. I found no bus drivers black. I found no truck drivers black, and had been seeing all that down south. So I figured I didn't come to a segregated place where I left.
We don't rent to blacks. We don't rent to Negroes. That's what they say at that time. It wasn't blacks. We don't rent to Negroes. And I went somewhere one day, and somebody asked me where did I live. And I told them I was living at 71st and Harvard. They didn't even believe that I lived in that neighborhood. But it just changed that quick because, you know, once blacks started moving in, then the whites are gone.
They moved out. They moved out. Every time one colored place moved in the neighborhood, they all would sell out. And they would move out and go to suburbs, you know. They all go to suburbs.
My father was always a pioneer. He was the first black to have his own scavenger business. He was the first black to have his own produce business. And after he'd break them in, he would go on off to something else. So he made good money. And he remarried. And he married a lady who aspired to live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. And we were the first blacks to move into a neighborhood called Park Manor.
A blockbuster was considered the first black person to move into a previously all-white block. And the idea was that the very presence of that first black face was going to create a hysterical reaction out of the residents who would try to escape because there were real estate brokers telling them, if you don't hurry and get out, your property is going to be lowered in value the longer you stay.
So realtors would move in a black person with a lot of children, and the white in the neighborhood who already lived there would see all these little kids, black kids running around, and they didn't like that. So people were frightened. If they have worked all their young lives to buy a home, I would have been frightened too. And they didn't give them very much for the houses, but they went up the price, sometimes double the price when they get ready to sell it to the black.
The lake formed a natural boundary on one side. Cicero, Bridgeport, and similar bastions of white resistance formed human boundaries on the other. Black Chicagoans seeking a way out of the ghetto had only one option. They moved further south, first crossing 63rd Street, then 75th, and eventually going beyond 90th. During the 1950s and 60s, the West Side community expanded in a similar fashion.
We went south, and it was almost a block-by-block advance, like fighting in Germany. Take street by street. That's what we were doing. It was almost as violent as when I was in the Army.
A Negro bus driver, Harvey Clark, rented an apartment here on July 11th, 1951. The following night, vandals broke into his apartment and destroyed his furnishings. At about the same time, a mob of 5,000 gathered outside. They hurled firebombs, rocks, and bottles at the building. Before the disturbance was over, martial law had been declared in the area. In all, 23 persons were injured, a dozen others arrested.
I will never forget. It was in 1950. I was a teenager. I think I was a junior in high school. The second or third day after we moved in, I was standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes, and I had anticipated a problem, but so far we hadn't had one. And all of a sudden, a rock was hurled through the kitchen window. It whizzed past me, glass shattered all over me. At the same time, I heard the rock come through the living room window. I hit the floor. My stepmother ran in and started cutting lights out. And I crawled to my bedroom. As I crawled, I heard the shotgun blast. And I assumed that they were now shooting at us, and we were all going to be dead for moving into this all-white neighborhood.
When we moved in, the trouble started. I mean, really started. It was a meat market about a half a block from the house, and I was going up there to buy some meat. And they saw me coming. There were about 8 or 10 that spreaded themselves across the sidewalk.
I just knew someone was going to be killed that night. And in fact, I did not realize that my father had anticipated that this would occur.
So I walked up to the crowd as though I didn't see him. And I just took my elbow and started my way through like that. And they stepped back after they found out I wasn't going to run. But I certainly wanted to run.
So my father was prepared, and evidently he was the one at the window doing the shooting. Of course, he didn't injure anyone. He was really shooting to let them know that this was our home and they could not make us go, and we weren't afraid. And I was afraid. I was terrified.
But I knew I had to make it through here today alone, or I'm not going to make it. And I knew I had to live there. So I just took a chance, and I went through. Made me brave.
The boundaries of the black neighborhoods continued to expand until the late 1960s, when black migration into the cities finally slowed. After many years of conflict over housing, black and white Chicagoans settled into an uneasy truce.